This is Concert Truth Presents. I'm your host, Boma. Tonight, September 17th, 8 p.m. Central Time, we have with us Mr. Robert Conte, which is a pop culture consultant. And we'll figure out exactly what that means to everyone. And this is right here, Mr. Robert Conte. Hey, Robert, how you doing?
Hey, good evening. How's everything going over there?
Awesome. South Texas is hot.
Oh,
So we're
wow. I
trying
can
to
imagine.
survive.
I can imagine.
96, 98, 104. We can boil an egg on my chest if you
Oh,
want.
my gosh. It's not just the degrees. How's the humidity out there?
Well, we have the beach is close by, so it's kind of sometimes you can get it's an hour away, but you can still sometimes get that humidity going on, which is horrible. But we make it the best possible, and we try to make it fun.
Okay. All
So,
right. We'll try.
Robert,
Yeah.
where you're at in New York, New Jersey,
New York.
New York. So, for those that don't know or what the awesome title that we have on your screen as pop culture consultant, can you kind of explain a bit on that? What that entitles to, or what is that you do as a
Sure, sure.
consultant?
Well, my entire life, I just loved basically all elements of pop culture, including music and television and TV, movies and all different types of things, merchandising products and stuff. I just was kind of just infatuated with just so much really cool stuff growing up, comic books and monster movies and things, and you know, being being someone who's always kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit, I just dedicated my life to taking the things that I enjoyed so much growing up and hoping to make it better for the next generation, so to speak. So um, in addition to my Kiss work, I also worked on various projects, and for Star Wars and Disney and Atari and Godzilla and so many different things. And hopefully, when people look back on the work that I've done towards those intellectual properties, that they said, hopefully we made them even better than what they were, the greatness that they already were.
How
So
That's awesome. How was your involvement in those books, especially the Atari and the Star Wars, which I guess as kids those were a big part of our lives. As
sure.
growing up with the Ataris and getting the cartridges, not the whole package with all the videos, but you had to actually buy a different cartridge for every different game. And then the Star Wars world, there's many art, books and movies and cartoons and merchandising on that. How did that the involvement in those two projects became?
Well, the I guess the Star Wars we'll start with first. The Star Wars books. It's actually a series of five books, one for each of the films: Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Oh, I'm sorry, four books, and then the next one was Star Wars Galaxy. So, in a nutshell, the licensee, the publisher that had the rights to reproduce the original Topps trading cards from the 70s, 80, and 83, respectively, even though they had the license, they didn't have access to the materials. And, Lucasfilm had just been acquired by Disney, or, that was still in process. So the archival materials were, locked away.
Hmm.
So I was fortunate enough that when I was a kid, I stockpiled Star Wars cards and I would trade them with other kids on the bus,
So
and
you had all the material to repackage and
yeah, I had everything. I had the cards, I had the stickers, I had the wrappers, and the good thing was I had a set to always play with and look at, and then I would always put a set away. So
really.
I had these mint condition cards that were in shoeboxes, untouched for decades,
Uh,
and the publisher of that series, I had connected with them at one of the comic conventions, and we made it happen. The really cool thing about the first volume, especially, was that it was the first time the Wonder Bread cards had been reproduced since their original release in 1977. I mean, how many of us back then went out and bought several loaves of bread in order to get that complete set? I was definitely one of them. I constantly hounded my mother, "Mom, you got
oh,
to
you
buy
get
another
those
loaf
big.
of Wonder Bread." Yeah. Probably much more bread in the house. It's funny because I know we didn't eat it all because we would break up the bread and take it to the local park and feed it to the geese. So yeah, but yeah, it was a great opportunity, and I got to write an essay about the history of the trading cards, and it was really cool because the person Gary Girani, who wrote all the original backs to the trading cards back in '77, '80, and '83, he was also involved in the project. So it was really cool to be part of that, it was always a life dream to work on a Star Wars project. So hey,
Whatever,
why
right?
not?
Can I
Yeah,
make a mask or just put some glue on a mask? And
yeah, right.
that's like my Star Wars moment.
Yeah.
My one question that I have: you mentioned the licensing. So the company, how long did that license? Is it is it a 50 years? How long do they have the rights to
That
reuse?
that particular arrangement, I don't know the exact details of what their licensing agreement is, but I'm sure it was for a few years because to do the projects the way we did them, that was almost, I think, from start to finish was approximately 2 years, and you need time to have them on sale and sell through and things like that.
Tribute and all that.
I mean, I was pleasantly surprised that I was in a bookstore not too long ago, and I had opened up a copy that they had for sale, and to see that it was in fifth printing, so it got reprinted 4 times after its initial release. So
Which is great.
that's always gratifying to see. So it's
They'll check
whatever we did worked.
they'll check me once in a while.
Yeah, yeah. I still have that little kid inside me that's just so, you just can't believe it. I feel like, the Marvel universe. I'm in an alternate, existence. you know?
Timeline.
Yeah, exactly.
At night, you become some kind of a superhero geek or some kind of.
Yeah, well, the best thing about, I mean, I firmly believe that the geeks and nerds of the world have taken over, and we rule everything now. And you could just look at the way the movie business has gone and the TV business has gone, and seeing all the different comics and graphic novels that have been adapted to live action is just it's just amazing. We're from the generation that when Superman the movie came out in 1978, that was like a big deal.
Yeah,
You didn't have the possibility of looking at several movies every year. That was just too big to fathom at the time. But
yeah.
look where we are now.
Animated Legos, comic books, different versions, different worlds, different characters involvement. So it's a pretty you know open history of what the characters may become or could be, or different timelines. It's
Oh
just
yeah.
amazing.
I mean, listen. One of the things I love the most about the way things work today is that the audience is just so receiving of all the different interpretations of the characters. I mean, it's like you don't even have to explain it to them. Here's the Batman from Earth 2, and here's the Lego Batman, and here's the other Batman. I mean, they're just so embracing of all the different interpretations. I mean, like I said, it's just it astounds me when I really think about how many versions of Batman have been in film to this day, and just the masses just love it. And here we're about to have another version of Robert
Another version.
Pattinson. But I mean, personally, but yeah, between you and me and the world. The return of Michael Keaton as Batman in the Flash movie. I
That's
can't wait. I
that's
cannot
awesome.
wait.
That's one of the little sprinkle on top of everything.
Oh
That he's
yeah,
back
oh, yeah.
as Batman. Yeah, I've seen that little clip and it's amazing. And that's
And
Star Wars, and also the Atari world. That's also a big part of our lives as kids.
sure,
That we
sure.
we grew up on that, and to be part involved now those graphics have become an art. Now some kind of a display. Even the square versions and drawings have now become a artwork, and I guess that's what this book entitles to: the art of the Atari games.
Well, the author who put all that together, he's definitely to be commended for researching and locating most of that original art. It's just fantastic. The fact that it finally got the Atari as a whole finally got the acknowledgement it deserved, not only for creating just enticing packaging. I mean, think about it. When you think about how simple those games were in retrospect, right?
Correct.
It's like what brought us into buying them was just the beautiful art styles on them. And I think about some of my favorite cartridges. What made me go out and buy them was seeing the artwork on the boxes. So it's like,
I know.
yeah, it was. Uh, I have an essay in the back of that book, and I was editorial consultant on it. And some of the things I found out, along the way was very interesting. For instance, the artist that painted the Space Invaders box is also the artist who painted the covers for the Boston albums, the rock group
Wow.
Boston. Yeah, yeah.
And those are amazing,
Oh,
amazing.
incredible, incredible art. And there it goes, right? And then we have another example is that the Superman box art that was compiled, it was a composition based on Kurt Swan and the artist Kurt Swan, legendary Superman artist. And then there was a Neil Adams image juxtaposed onto it. And most of that image comes from one specific Superman cover,
Mhm.
Superman 2022, which came out sometime in the 70s. But it was really cool. I got to, I've known Neil Adams for many years, and to actually bring him the Superman box art to sign for me was a really cool experience. And that's in my other office. But it was just to be able to contribute to something that meant so much to me as a kid, and the fact
Correct.
that these retro properties are just so hot now. It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me that the kids today are even interested in the real basic stuff that we thought was just the bomb back in the
Yeah.
day, man. Right?
One of the best books in the world. I was going through, bit of research on stuff you did, and I saw on your Facebook page you had put up a video link of an interview you had done, I guess 30 some years ago, or on Superman,
Yeah.
and the story of how those two guys just pretty much sold their rights for 132 bucks. I mean, they later on got some kind of a uh, money from it, but it was just how they sold just the idea on a 13 page, and then it took off and it went crazy. I mean, it's just, I mean, that's the story of many other, ideas that just happen and, they take over, but it was just how, it, things like that happen all the time.
Oh, sure. I mean, look, when any business is in its infancy, and back then comic books were relatively in their infancy, and superheroes was a brand new concept. It was hard to get through the door. I mean, that's the first thing. So the fact that they worked on, we're talking about Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, co-creators of Superman. The fact that they, knocked down so many doors and finally got it published, they were probably so grateful to see it in print.
That's it.
And
I'm
and the
good.
fact and think about the fact it became a multi-billion-dollar enterprise over the past 80 plus years. It's just amazing when you see. So that CNN interview from '92 that was filmed the day that the Death of Superman issue came out.
Oh, okay.
And it was also oh no, forgive me, I was on CNN twice. That first time was when Joe Shuster passed away. Yes, they did a little tribute for him and talked about his contributions and how Superman led to hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of other superheroes. I mean, they created a genre without even realizing it.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
And back then you were working at that comic store where you were interviewed.
Yeah, I was managing a comic book store in Greenwich Village on Bleecker Street. I was one of the managers there, and the owner, he was kind enough to pass the camera on to me. He knew I, knew my stuff and could give some information that was useful for the piece. And it's funny, I kind of got the TV bug after that, and wound up offering my services to various TV shows. And believe it or not, I was actually counting them. I believe it or not, as far as like mass media goes, I've actually been on TV almost 30 times, which is you know I
Yeah.
didn't realize it till I actually started putting the pieces together. It's like, wow, oh jeez.
Once you get that taste of the TV or something like that, you want to kind of go back and at least show face in some kind of a segment or something. Happens to
Sure.
me. Yeah, happened at least a few times as well. But it's just like once you, and I work in TV, so it's once you get that taste, once you're in there, it's whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to reach the masses, and if you have something interesting to say, they'll come back to you. So,
Somehow,
somehow they'll come back
sort
to
of
you.
like this, but just different
Yeah.
outlet.
Well, look how different the world is today. I mean, we could do these podcasts and stuff anytime we want to. The editing software is just amazing. What you could do out of your home. I mean, it's amazing. The filmmakers of the early days, if they knew the technology that we have at home today, they just wouldn't believe it. You know?
Yeah, what we have on our phones, and
Yeah,
forget about either desktop, just on your phone, whatever they can be able to do if they wanted to, which
absolutely.
is it's crazy. Now digging into now with your project that we love to talk about is about your Kiss experience, which that's how I first knew about you by going to the uh, special edition Arena reunion magazine that came out, and reading through all the projects that was Kiss going on, and then see this guy Robert Conte that was going into the vaults, had gone through the vaults, and was able to check on every single little piece of Kiss audio available. I guess at that point in the vault that they mentioned so much in that awful interview with Jay Leno. But you were there. I mean, you were able to contribute. But before that, I forget you were also involved. Previous to that, that's how you started involving with Kiss because of you had published a comic book.
Right, we did Rock and Roll Comics #9 back in 1990. There it is. Yeah, it's hard to believe that that's 32 years ago. But I remember producing that book with artist Greg Fox like it was yesterday because we had like 2 weeks to do the whole thing. And amazingly, with the talents of about two or three other inkers and a letterer, and we pulled it off. And that wound up going into either fourth or fifth printing as well. And it just, it kind of affirmed for me that hey, this is really what I want to do with my life. I want to, work on comics and TV and work with celebrities if I can, and things like that. So that was kind of a spearboard project, a springboard project for me. Springboard.
Talk
So.
about how was the involvement, how that came to as a kid, I guess, and just trying to, like you said, getting some kind of project, be involved in some kind of, in this case, comic books and Kiss.
Well, I was managing a comic book store in Huntington Station, New York, and I was ordering the product for the store, and I
Hmm.
had seen an ad for Revolutionary Comics was the name of the publisher. They had advertised a new series, Rock and Roll Comics. So I took a chance on them. They at the time they only had two issues available. It was Guns N' Roses and Metallica. I had purchased them both for the shop, and they sold out immediately. And I had to reorder. And as I was doing that, the publisher Todd Lauren, he got on the phone, and he and I developed a rapport. And I told him, I said, "Look, no offense against what you're doing right now, but I think I would like an opportunity to do better." And he said, "Well, what do you want to do a book on?" I said, "I'd love to do Kiss because it's my favorite group." And he kind of laughed. He's like, Marvel did Kiss. You wanted to do Kiss. We want to do other groups." And I said, "Well, give me a chance. Let me send you a script, and if you like it, great. If you don't, that's it." And I remember it was the very first time I ever used FedEx, and I sent it off to him, and he called me and said he loved it. We were going to do it, but it was funny. It was originally going to be, well, it was ultimately #9 still, but Skid Row was supposed to come out before that, #8. And Skid Row's licensing agent put a cease and desist on that issue from ever being distributed. So the Kiss issue got bumped up. But like I said, as a result of that, we only had 2 or 3 weeks tops to get the whole thing done. And to Greg's credit and some of the other artists that were involved, they were just so awesome. And where there's a will, there's a way, and we got it done. We
Was
got
it
it done.
each different comic book done independently by a group of people like yourself and the ink and all that, or you just threw in the idea and they had the people to do it? Was it
Well, regarding the Kiss one, I wrote the script, and then Greg penciled the entire issue. Then we had two or three inkers work on that, and then New Kids on the Block was my second one. We wrote that, and there was,
perfect? Just
yeah, it's not, yeah, so different, right? New Kids on the Block.
I
It
was
wasn't, it
the
was
Milli
funny.
Vanilli one, the Milli Vanilli.
It was funny because that one wound up getting probably some of the most media attention out of all the books that series published. because the new kids didn't want it out there because it was a truthful account of how the group came together and everything, and you know that wasn't necessarily the image they wanted to portray. When you read their press clippings and stuff, it's
And
actually pretty funny against what the truth was. And but anyway, they also had a deal with another comic publisher for an authorized New Kids on the Block series. So, this wound up being in the news because it wound up going to litigation and so on and so forth. And then ultimately, the Supreme Court in California ruled that you could tell an authorized biography through pictures as well as through photographs. So it created some legal ground and positive legal ground for publishers wanting to go in that direction. And then the whole unauthorized comics period just exploded. I mean, if you were reading comics in the 1990s, you could find so many comics published by a myriad of publishers.
I mean,
About unauthorized this, unauthorized that. It was an incredible time. It's
I
kind
don't
of
know. I
funny.
don't know if you were aware. Well, I'm sure you know about. Well, funny story. I'll tell you about this one. I have yours and this other one, but
Okay. Oh yeah,
this
Kiss in the Shadow of Death. Oh yeah, I remember
shadow of
that
death.
one. Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if you're aware of this publication from Mexico, which is called Cheese,
Oh yes.
CHISS, and this is back in 80 something, or
Wow.
probably even 70. And this same situation. I mean, but these guys were on for like 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
and published, whatever an amount of 80 or some. And that was the same thing. I mean, but I guess back then, and even in Mexico, you're not going to get a cease and desist, letter or some kind of a lawsuit. But it goes back as 80s. That
Sure.
people trying to get something published in order to express their love or or for the music and for the characters or what have you, and they published this whole set of comic books same way as probably you guys did.
Well, it look, when something's popular and has a large fan base, of course there are people that are going to want to contribute to their canon or to hop on the popularity bus, so to speak. And that's the way it's always been. I mean, for movies from the 1920s, there were always people that wanted to kind of capture that thrill of being around celebrities or adapting stories about them or writing articles about them. I
Correct.
mean, that's just the way the business is. You're lucky if out of your efforts that somebody actually takes notice and says, "Oh, this person has a certain amount of talent that we could use." Officially, I think that's kind of how the Kiss thing worked for me.
I know you mentioned I've from doing some research. I also worked in a record store as you did as well at some point
Nice.
in our youth, and I guess that's the part that you started uh trying to get you got into Kiss at some point in 85, 86. What was it the first time you kind of
Earlier than that. Well, the night that made me the rabid Kiss fan I became was September 18th, 1983, when they took the makeup off on MTV. I had Kiss stuff before then. I had owned the model van that was given to me by a classmate for Christmas. I had the Kiss trading cards because I would just buy anything non-sport trading cards, and I certainly had seen the Marvel comics. And I remember a kid bringing the Love Gun album to school and got in trouble because
the girls?
well, I was in third grade when Love Gun came out, so for a kid to bring that to school, the
It's
teacher, I'll never forget. Do you know what this means? Go to the principal's
those
office.
girls on the
Yeah,
cover.
exactly. Yeah, so I mean, Kiss definitely had a presence for my age group. Like I said, I was 7 or 8 at the time.
Was that just
Um,
musically or just the image? Was it both?
I would say it was more image. Believe it or not, the very first Kiss the quote unquote Kiss tune I ever heard was the Mego commercial for the
The
Dolls, which
dolls.
wasn't Kiss as we know. But when that type of music, the first time I ever heard a Kiss tune, Kiss, that's the name, on Channel 11, PIX, Channel 11 in New York. They would play that commercial incessantly in between the cartoon shows like Tom and Jerry and the Gilla Gorilla.
Flintstones and
Yeah, yeah, so yeah. As a matter of fact, in the afternoon they played Batman, Superman, and the Lone Ranger, and that Kiss commercial was just peppered throughout there. I remember that.
So that's how you became with the involved. When you started liking the music or the characters of Kiss, and you worked at a record store. And you mentioned, I've heard that you kind of went through as a regular kid. You would, I mean, same way we all did. We kind of got together a couple of bucks and went to the store and tried to get whatever we could afford, either the used or the slashed, the corner cut or records or whatever was in stock that we would be interested in.
It was interesting because when Lick It Up came out, all of a sudden you started seeing the Kiss makeup stuff get deep discounted. I have a couple of dear friends I'm still friends with today. There was a store near where we lived. The first there was Toys R Us, and they deep discounted things like the Kiss makeup kits, and Kmart, you know,
Blowouts.
blew out the costumes, the Halloween costumes. I mean, everything was being sold dirt cheap.
If we only
And
knew, right?
oh yeah, if you only knew. I mean, so the thing that was funny was there was a store called Odd Lot, and they had stacks and stacks and stacks of the Kiss dolls for 99 cents each. Can you imagine
God.
that? And this is like 1980. As a matter of fact, it's funny. Now I remember this even more. This was Christmas season 1983. So this stuff was just getting dumped everywhere. It was just
But they've been at least for at least 6 years in stock. I mean, at the warehouse and some inventory just back of the store and the warehouse and piles of dolls.
oh sure. Well, the other thing I remember at the time was Mego also did the superheroes, the Marvel and the DC superheroes, but they all they did a huge amount of Hulk action figures because of the Lou Ferrigno, Bill Bixby TV show. So
Hmm.
that stuff, so the Hulk figures were as low as 49 cents at one point. I mean, it was really kind of nuts.
God.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, thank goodness, three of my buddies that went to the store at this, around the same time I did are still around because they could verify this. We used to crack up about this all the time. So what I would do, I first got enamored with the different vinyl labels because I, Lick It Up I had, and then my grandmother got me Dynasty, and then I got the first Kiss album after that. And then, one day I'm in, it was a place called Busy Bee Mall, which was, kind of like a farmer's market kind of thing, but for different products and stuff. And there was a used record store in there, and the guy had the Kiss Alive, and, it was cheap. And I opened it up, and it was the very first time I ever saw a blue label Casablanca. I said, this doesn't make any sense. How's the first album, Casablanca Record and Filmworks, and this just says Casablanca, and why is
Crappy.
it blue? Oh yeah. So my Mr. Detective inside me decides, oh, I got to figure this out somehow. And it was interesting because then at that point, every time I'd go into a record store, a used record store, a new record store, I would like start to
Pull
look
out.
at each of the sleeves. Oh yeah, it was nuts. So then then I ultimately determined, okay, there was a blue label with silver ink on it, printed on it, then a blue label with black ink, then the Casablanca first hand logo without the record and film works, then the record and film works, and then all the different ways the type was set out on some of these albums. I mean, it was just nuts. It was just like, oh my gosh. So
Forget about going to Columbia Records and trying to order, whatever, other versions of it, which is another kind of,
oh, that was that's a whole nother anomaly unto
monster.
itself. Yeah, absolutely. But so yeah. As a matter of fact, you just reminded me the first Columbia Record Club item I ever got was the Kiss Love Gun cassette, which looks so weird because if you look at the spine, it's like a pink spine, two lines of pink, two pink lines, and then Kiss Love Gun, at the base. And it's just like, oh, what is this? This doesn't measure. This doesn't. It
Just
doesn't. It's
cut
not in
and paste.
sync with everything else. What is this? Oh my gosh, that stuff used to drive me nuts. So if I being a completist mentality, and I'm a self-admitted OCD person, you can imagine seeing stuff that
I'm,
just
I'm
looks
a
out of
little bit. I'm
place,
just a little
right?
bit trying to get some of my OCD going on here.
It's just like, wait a
Hold
minute,
on,
what's
I'm just
this?
lost here.
Yeah.
Some second. I just got it. I'm
So
good.
I absolutely dreaded ordering things from RCA in Colombia because they had their own stamps on them. In many cases, the designs of the cassettes were different, and it just drove me nuts. And it's funny, even the record stores back then, if you tried to trade that stuff in, you know, you were
They
lucky
knew.
to,
They knew.
yeah, they knew. You were very lucky to get like a quarter for it because it just wasn't, it was almost considered counterfeit, even though it wasn't. You know what I
I
mean? It was
know.
just, and
Like the lowest of the of the tier.
yeah, yeah. They were just like, oh, you got this from RCA. Like, yeah, I know. I'll
Out of
give you a quarter for it. Oh, okay. So, but anyway, but the used record stores around Long Island, they got to know me. I would go in there, all these different shops weekly. Got anything Kiss? Got anything Kiss? Got anything Kiss? And you know, I became a big pain in the neck to them all. But the thing was really cool is I developed this rapport where they would hold stuff for me. So the next time I came in, oh yeah, Robert, here you go. You want this? Oh yeah, I would take it,
course.
and that's how I built up this like at the time was a pretty large vinyl collection. People would come over and be like, dude, why do you have 20 copies of Alive? Like, how crazy are you? I'm like, listen, you have your hobbies, I have mine.
I have my kinks. You have yours.
Yeah, yeah. So it just got to be. And then when the Polygram reissues came out around '85, it just drove me nuts. It was just,
I
it
know. I
was,
just
it
I
was
just kind of felt that when and you mentioned that the point of Kiss losing the makeup kind of became, I guess, to the label like, well, we just try to push this new image and whatever we had before that, just whatever we have left off, versions of it, whatever releases or just get
it
them out of
just,
the way.
yeah, it just seemed there was no thought put into it. Backlist as a whole never really gets respect after a certain point. It's just like, oh, we just have to keep it in print because of legal contracts or because they sell a few
Distribution or
copies.
what have you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so unfortunately, during the non-makeup years, the Kiss makeup albums just did not get any real care or attention. It was just like the stuff just got slopped together, and there's a version, I think it's been talked about before, but there was a time when you could buy a Love Gun, I'm sorry, Rock and Roll Over. You'd buy a polygram Rock and Roll Over, and it would come with a Love Gun sleeve, which was ridiculous. And the thing was, it wasn't the original Love Gun sleeves because the Love Gun sleeve and the Rock and Roll Over actually had a barcode printed on it.
So it's
So
just
it was
complete
just like,
mess.
yeah, I was just like, I used to really think that there were people working at the record company
Monkeys.
purposefully trying to sabotage the band. It was really upsetting to me.
To me, I mean,
Um,
I was born in Mexico, so I was able to buy some of my records that I have are from Mexico. So they have the different labels. Some had the same kind of look,
mhm.
different, different language, what have you. They never had any of the inserts.
Oh,
Very
never. So even
never,
from day
never,
one, really.
never,
Wow.
never had any inserts. And it's just like an item of vanity because there's no there's nothing on them, just a plain. Even this, even the actual material, it's a crappy one. It's a crappy material. It's not. It's a cardboard mess.
I had a few of the Mexican Kiss albums, but I remember the sleeves were so flimsy. And I was
Awful.
just, yeah, I believe it or not, I was never very few imports. I was not a big import person. I had other friends that were Kiss fans that loved the imports. I had very few imports. I kind of concentrated more on the variations of the American product, and probably Canada too. There's some great Canada pressings out there. But yeah, when it came to, and I had some of the good Japanese stuff, but you know, it got to a point where I'm like, okay, do I want to have a social life or do I want to spend the rest of my life spending every
I gotta go
penny
to
of
the
my
movies.
disposable income, on Kiss stuff? It
No,
just comes to a point.
I bought my first Dynasty was on Sears in Mexico. It was just same plane, but I later on acquired the U.S. versions, and I have some of them. I have doubles. I'm not a big record as far as different versions because I could go on and buy rooms full of it. Even now with the
Yeah,
new releases on Aces and the new Love Guns or whatever versions that come out or the new solo albums being repackaged, it's just endless. I mean, you could spend money up the wazoo and fill rooms and rooms.
yeah. Listen, if you have a completist mentality, all these different variants would probably drive you bonkers, especially if you don't have the money to buy it all. And
Yeah, you can't. You
yeah,
can't.
yeah, just if you don't have the funds to splurge on that kind of thing on a
It's
regular basis,
no, it's
it,
you
it
can endless. Even when you work at a record store, you get free stuff all the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
But even then, when I was working, there was no LPs anymore. There was just CDs. So you would get few stuff, once in the other promo stuff, and that was kind of cool because you had the promo sticker or stamp on it, so you kind of had like a little special item because it was a promo or a poster or a display. But it's not. I mean, there's now books, those 4 books that came out with every kind of different sticker. I mean, great if you want to go and dig a hole and spend your life just looking for the different stickers on the
yeah. I mean, it's great for
kudos to
people.
whatever they're doing, but it's just
Yeah,
too much.
yeah. No, listen. If, like I said, if you have, it's like I was in the comic book business for a long time, right? And a couple of weeks ago, there was a record sale for a Batman #1 going for like, whatever 3.2 million or something. And I say to myself, it's like $3.2 million for one comic book. I'm like, how many people could you feed for 3.2 million? And I just got to a point, I'm 51 now. I just got to a point of just like, it doesn't feel right to spend that kind of money on one item
No, I mean it's
when
just
there's so much, disarray going on the planet.
yeah,
You know what I
just
mean?
to,
So
or pay something else, or buy a new suit, buy some shoes, or
yeah, right. How about or I mean, I have 3 children, so they come first.
change
So
the
believe me,
curtains.
yeah, believe it. Actually, to their credit, they inspired me to get out of this whole collecting thing because, there are things I will treasure always, but I mean, I haven't bought anything consistently in years. As a matter of fact, the first thing that I've decided to buy after so long is that announcement today about the Destroyer 45th anniversary edition.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
let's get into that in a little bit because
Yeah.
that's kind of a cool item. Funny you mentioned,
Yeah.
we have my stack of different magazines from all kinds from Mexico and what have you, and I realized that I never had gotten yours when I could back then.
Mhm.
So when we started talking, so I'm gonna go. I need to have this in my collection. So somehow I found one, the one I showed you earlier, and I guess this is like a collector's item because it says "Great to know you." April 24th, 2012. Rock on, Ralph Conti.
Oh wow,
I
wow.
found a.
Wait. Did I sign that for you or is
No, no, no,
somebody?
no, no,
Oh,
no.
that's
I just got
funny.
it offline. I mean,
Oh my
I wanted to get a
gosh.
copy. I was just going and just, hey, this is the one. Okay, I didn't even look till I got it today. It's a signed version.
Oh my gosh! So the person I signed it for, great to know you. He or she couldn't care less because they
Yeah,
got rid of it.
I'm just going name on top. Said Marcelo. Great to know you.
Oh, there you go. Look at that. I'll do that for you. That's funny. The other cool thing I see on your shelf there, you've got the very first Kiss appearance in comics, the
Yeah,
Howard the Duck. I see that.
yeah.
Yeah.
How did that?
Oh, very cool.
This is one, and this is the second time.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Oh, let me see the first one again. The first, the 12,
the
right? Yeah.
12. This is the 12. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that, all right, that's the 30 center. Okay. Believe it or not, there's a 35-cent variant of that one, the number
I
12.
know. I've heard that
Yeah.
one. I heard
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
Which I
Hmm?
had.
When you think you have it all, right? Yeah.
You can never have enough. I
You
mean,
can never. You can never have enough. You can never have it all.
this room used to be filled with all kinds of figures for a while. We kind of went crazy on the Spencer stuff, and then you see, you know what? I'm short $500 on whatever. I'm just gonna sell it and get out
Yeah.
of it
Right.
because it's too much. I mean, great to the people that love it and have the space and time and the cash to do it, which is
Sure.
greatly. I mean, that's kind of their own museum. And at some point will be for people that never got it or seen it, be able to see it somewhere displayed. But I mean, I only have one room available, and I can't take it anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's there's always space limitations and
Yeah,
you
wife
know
and
yeah, real life, right? Family, yeah, you can't, you do get to a point. You're just like, I just can't do. It's funny. I was a big Batman collector, right,
uh,
for in my teens and childhood through early 20s, and when Kenner in 1992 released those 100 plus variants of Batman figures around the time Batman Returns came out, I said, "That's it, no more." I never bought another, consistent Batman figure since. I mean, I would pick up one occasionally here and there, but it gets to a point you just can't have it all. You
I'm
just,
same team with the kids figures. I mean, they're awesome. Some are great. Some are
yeah,
horrid.
mm,
They've become like just I guess a line of people just doing whatever they need to sell out. And I
right.
mean, I get it. It's a license. People want to buy different versions of whatever, and packaging is amazing, or they look good. If you never had before, some of that first editions of the Migos, or you probably want to get some kind of feel. Even the McFarlane, they were great, but at some point they just did like 20 different versions with an LP, black and
Oh,
gold
sure.
records. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand it's what it is, and especially with this group that has you know that kind of a mentality of giving you whatever you want.
Well, listen, the bottom line is, there's definitely demand for it. That's why all the stuff keeps happening, keeps coming
Exactly.
out. I mean, there's certainly demand for it. So, as long as the marketplace, thrives on it, then they'll still keep coming. But
Yeah. Now let's get into a little bit of when you got to before you got to this point.
okay, wow, that's over. That's half my life ago.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow, wow. It's pretty funny that was 25 years ago in June, if I remember correctly. Yeah, this past
So
June,
talk
25
about a
years.
bit of that. How was that your mentality of checking all the labels and all that stuff that you became with the manuscript to present to the band and say, hey guys, your catalog is all fucked up.
Well, Kiss had Kiss did a signing at Tower Records near where I lived at the time, and a dear friend of mine who's no longer with us and I went to the signing, and I had I had this report which basically was approximately 55, 56 pages of from what I knew at the time,
Was
every
this
single.
is pre reunion? I'm sorry to.
Oh yeah, pre-reunion. This was a signing for a live three.
Okay.
So yeah, so it was a live three signing, and I had this manila envelope with a report, and Kiss's manager at the time, Larry Harris. I introduced myself to him, and he brought me to Gene and Paul, and we talked for a little bit. And Gene, Gene initially just seemed very astounded that this even was an issue. He definitely made it clear to me he had no idea any of this was going on, and you know, uh, they looked into it, and then the next thing I know, I got a phone call from Jess Hilson, who was involved with the band at the time. And next thing I knew, I was working with the group in various
Talk
ways.
about the when Gene knew that you had published that other comic book.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's the way. That's on almost every podcast. You don't need to repeat that again, do you?
I mean, because
The
it's
final line.
it's a little like
Yeah.
dent on what it's like. Oh man, I'm gonna start with the right leg, left foot right
Yeah,
into your
right.
mouth.
Yeah, you did not have our permission to put that book out. Yeah, I know. But you know what? It broke the ice. I have to say that comic book helped break the ice, as far as being able to communicate with them directly. And this is not
To
like
say, okay,
today.
that's the same guy at least, or
Right,
some
right.
kind
Gene's got great facial recognition, so he definitely would see me at these things, and he knew exactly who I was. And I was actually mutual friends with an old friend that Paul Stanley knew from his teenage years. Yeah, he was a dear friend of mine at the time, and
okay.
so we were connected that way too. And it was just a great way to come in to meet the group through a unique perspective. I mean, most people couldn't care less about variant covers and different colors and color shifting on the labels and things. All they want to hear is that the music's good, right? But it got so bad to the point, like there's
Not,
certain
not,
higher than hell
not
cassette.
even that. Not even that had that. They had different tracks on it.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you listen to some of the cassettes and the tracks are just totally put out of order. But the final straw was when they put that live "Nothing to Lose" on the first Kiss record. You're just like, what planet? Where? Who the hell's in charge of this? I mean, it was really bad.
Plus, if you have a set of tracks from one box or record, so that's the one that comes next. How you gonna find something that came out after, came out 4 year, 4 albums later, and put it into that? If you already had that track listing of the first record, how come you
Well,
went?
my whole thing was, the tapes already exist. The master tapes exist the way they're supposed to be. Why would you mess with them in the first place? That's the, you know what I'm saying? That's what I just could not get my finger on that. Even when I was in the vault and I actually found that master tape that had the Live Nothing to Lose on it, and someone wrote, do not ever use this again in red
And that's
ink.
the one I
And
used.
yeah, and it's like, somebody used it. I mean, to me, that's something that shouldn't even exist. It's like, you know what? It's a mistake. Destroy it. Get rid of it. Don't even put it in the queue to possibly be
Yeah,
used. I mean, it just didn't make any sense.
banned.
Um, but yeah, and then I mean, years later on the internet circuit, there was this whole debate about, oh, there must have been some legal clearance issues with the original recording. No, somebody incorrectly spliced
Messed up.
that song together. Yeah, and that's what it is. And people come up with all these great theories. Some of them are really interesting to read. Uh, you know, um, it's funny when things I've seen with my own two eyes in the vault, people dispute. I think that's funny too.
Oh yeah.
But it's okay. It's okay.
So that whole remastered edition that you got to work on, which is great, and I love all the liner notes that you wrote on that, kind of explaining what the band period was going on through that time, the difficulties or what have you, and that's a good perspective on a fan that is involved, like you mentioned, involved in one of your childhood, fantasies or heroes, and you become part of that, and you're able to, literally put your stamp on it.
It's interesting. If I had, um, I mean, it's at some point it would have been interesting to see if the Kiss remasters would have come out when they did, if they would have happened at all. Giving Gene that report really kind of, in my opinion, kind of lit the flame to try to get something done to correct it, because it was just so all over the place, and it was just so. Um, I have no qualm saying this. It was very irresponsible of Polygram to put those records out that way, and not to recall them and destroy as many of them as they could and put them out the right way. I mean, it was just. I mean, double platinum being shoved into one sleeve. I mean, come on.
Yeah, come
I
on.
mean that. I mean, how bad could you get it? And but see, this is what was also funny. I rarely bring this up, but it's true. So where I lived in Long Island, on Long Island, we had a record world which sold, new stuff, new records, new recordings, got in stuff every Tuesday. So I had a fella there who was kind enough, every time a Kiss related item would come in, he would put it on the side for me, right?
Oh,
So a little further down was a Woolworth. And the thing that was funny about the Woolworth department stores, they would constantly sell cutouts.
yeah.
So it was funny when Polygram reissued the solo albums, for instance, in '85. The inner sleeve was gone, the posters were gone, so on and so forth, right? And they wanted full retail for those re-releases. You could walk right down to Woolworth and get the punch out cut or the cutout for $2.98 with everything in it.
Yeah,
It was hysterical. I'm like, okay, original version with cutout,
or just
or
the
this like
crappy
lame,
new
yeah,
version.
exactly. Which one would you buy? So
Especially if you only had $10 to buy whatever, or $20.
yeah, yeah. And then it was funny because a lot of the record shows in that area at the time, I would try to explain this to some of the dealers, and they would just laugh it off, like, "Dude, you're putting too much effort into this." I'm like, "You don't understand how important this is."
Comes a blue label and
Yeah, exactly. But people started. What really also kind of changed it too was when the Kiss CDs started coming out, the backlist, right?
Mhm.
And Alive had all that scratchy noise in parts of it, and Hotter Than Hell had all that scratch in it. And I'm just like, wait a minute, you're expecting people to pay premium money for a new format, and you'd even listen to the tapes when you transfer them over to CD. I mean, if you have if you bought Hard in Hell on CD when it first came out, or Alive when it first came out, and I mean within the first 2 or 3 months, you listen to those CDs. I mean, they're horrible. Absolutely, the sound
Well,
on those is
I've always
horrible.
had. I guess we all have that problem with Hotter Than Hell having that compressed sound. I mean, now you get used to it and you love it the way it is. But I mean,
See, I
I
like titty music. Like to me, Hard in Hell is titty, which makes it hard for me. So I like it. But what I'm talking about is when you actually listen to the tape transfer, you start hearing on like around watching you
uh,
mainline, you start hearing this,
oh my
and it's
god,
like what, and I thought something was wrong with my player. I didn't have it
doing
plugged
just
in
at the
right.
moment.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then it's just a shame. And then the other part of the CD releases was that they didn't come with the tchotchkes either. So it's like, wait a minute, you expected me to pay $40 for a live on CD, and you didn't even put the book in? Really? Come
Yeah,
on,
I know.
so that also was a big part of it was to I wanted to do when the point of me being involved in the remasters was to put out something that was cohesive, that the design was very linear, everything matched when you put it on the shelf
Set the
because you
standard
never
for
had
what
the
will be the next collection
right, right,
of
exactly,
kids catalog.
exactly, yeah, yeah. So I mean
Up
that's
to
what we
what
had.
up to what record were you able to or be part of that remastering? Was it up to Asylum or
Crazy Nights was the last one that
Crazy
was
Nights? Okay,
released,
Crazy Nights.
but we did have initial plans to do Smashes, Thrashes, and Revenge, and there was talk of putting out a live three as a double disc with extra tracks. I mean, we did get that far with it. I wrote liner notes up to the live three, and
No killers, right?
we had talked. It's interesting you bring up Killers. We wanted to bring Killers in, and it was funny. I was able to work with the label to get rights to put out the two Peter Criss solo albums, "Let Me Rock You," which I heard now is on vinyl, which is great.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, but the very first release of that in the U.S. was on the CD that we worked on.
I have my
Um,
Out of Control Mexican version of that.
oh, really?
Out,
Cool.
of Out of
Yeah,
Control.
very nice, very nice. And you know, the there was Killers that we wanted to put out, but we just couldn't get the legal okay. Best of the solo albums. There was the Phonogram, which was the European division of Polygram. We had tried to do stuff like that, and even though we had a couple of songs masters for a couple of the Killers tracks, we didn't have all four of them, and it's too bad. But I'm glad it's finally out. I'm glad they finally did put that stuff out on
So
vinyl.
you couldn't do a best of solo albums back then because of legal issues, even though you had the masters for each individual record.
We could have created our own
I know.
master.
I mean, yeah. So
You
I'm saying,
know,
call it the
as a matter
best
of fact,
of or best of Gene Paul and Ace and Peter. I mean,
right,
something different.
right. But whatever legalities or whatever contractual stuff was there, that was certainly a problem. It wasn't like we had free reign and said, okay, we're going to do this way, do this that way. I mean, it was always about making sure the band was comfortable, which is always a necessity, and it's a good thing. You always have to make sure that everything that you're doing is in line with the existing agreements between the label and the band.
Correct.
So there were things I wanted to do, just we just didn't have didn't
Powers.
have the okay. Or the other thing that happened was during the sales of the remasters, the sales of them started to decline in pre-orders. So the label, they said, look, these aren't selling it, the way we want them to. So why are we going to invest more money in making these like, deluxe packages if they're not going to sell the units that we want them to sell?
How
And that
many
was
were
a
they
very,
produced for each? How many were they produced for each record? I mean, was it like okay, let's uh do 250,000, half a million of each? I mean, what was it the mentality of
the
each?
final numbers I was never privy to.
Okay,
But I can tell you that, especially with the early, like the first four or the first five Kiss records, we had envisioned and created like high deluxe packaging for those things, but the numbers just didn't merit, doing them, which is too bad. I mean, what was that? The Digipack
hmm.
format. That would have been great to do them that way, but
Do you think would have been a good time to do a box set when Kiss got reunited and say, okay, this is the first uh, eight records, or the Alives and the three and three. So
Well, I'm glad you
Which
brought
is,
that
I mean, I
up.
guess sort of kind of became one of the best. But I mean, as a whole package of of a box set.
Well, a lot of the stuff, like one of the things I'm very excited about today when I read about the Destroyer 45th edition, that Paris concert that they're including. I mean, that's great because the Flaming Youth track that was going to be that I pitched for You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best. That was
Oh, so it's
actually
not in there.
so that Flaming Youth is actually on there. So that's great. People are finally going to hear at least
So
one of the
you
tracks.
heard all? Did you hear all that whole show when you were in the warehouse vault?
I heard I was my goal working on You Wanted the Best was to find songs that had not been released live previously. So when I saw that tape and I said, "Oh my God, Flaming Youth," I had to hear it. So we heard Flaming Youth to make sure it was good enough to be mastered.
Correct.
So finally, one of those tracks is finally coming out. That's great to hear, and the whole concert's coming out, which is awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
the original purpose of You Wanted the Best was to showcase songs that were performed live but were never released live officially. But now the whole show's coming out, so that's just look at that. Yeah, that's one of the six designs for that record. The
Prototypes,
initial designs, yeah, prototype
and then we had
designs.
this.
Yep, yep. That's
I just never liked.
very different.
I just never liked that they kind of added the Kiss Alive logo, which they could have done better. And then the four faces, which I mean, if you had them now back in makeup, why use a painted or comic sort of like design for it? I would have loved to just see the new faces or some kind of. I mean, that was a novelty back then. Hey, they're back. They're back in costume. They're back in makeup, and you go back and kind of do a little drawing of Photoshop or I don't know. I always kind of
There was an art department. Mercury Polygram had an art department. They took the concepts, they did their own thing, and what we got, it's debatable whether it was the best or not.
you did you wanted the best.
Like I said, for me, the biggest problem with that record was that there were too many chefs in the kitchen. There was
Mhm.
just so many people that wanted to put in their 2 cents, and I understand it from a creative point of view. Everybody wants to be part of a big thing, but You Wanted the Best was originally envisioned to be like a surplus record for the diehard fan, and by the time it was over, it was mutated into something that was supposed to sell to the masses, and they just didn't understand that um, the
Which I
diehard
get.
kid, yeah, yeah, you
I
know,
mean, it just. I mean, we would have loved to see a four four CD package, poster, LP, or maybe a different kind of a box set. But
it was funny because we designed the original design for that. Had a lot more stuff in it, and they rushedly they rushed to take some of the stuff out at the last minute, including not even that was supposed to come with a poster. Well, guess what? It even says it on the vinyl, limited edition poster included. And guess what? No poster. So unfortunately, it's things like that. The shame is like one of the things I'm personally upset about was that when the Casteria box set came out,
yeah,
they could have corrected it. They could have put the stuff in. The stuff was there. It wasn't like
just yeah.
everything was designed. You could have been like, oh, here's the ultimate version
By
of
the
You
way,
Wanted the
yeah,
Best. Yeah, and it's just like, okay, I mean, the hype sticker, fortunately, was not put on the Casteria version, but still, it's like, here's a chance you had to
now
correct
the
that.
final, the actual.
And the thing that kills me the most, I know what that poster looks like, and that poster was phenomenal. It was meant to blow your minds, and hopefully one day we'll actually get it out there.
God,
Hopefully.
it's just so many. How many days were you able to go through all those tapes and
I was
inventory?
there,
I
I
guess.
was there over a period of months. Yeah, I was there probably roughly 3 days a week for several months, going through tapes. I mean, there was just so many tapes.
Did you go through every single record, or was you just okay? I'm gonna focus on this era from of the best of or destroyer of rock and roller, or how
Well,
was
the
that
fun
process?
the fun parts of working on the live one and two. was that the original Source concerts were there on tapes, and we got to listen to all that stuff because there was talk at one point of totally remastering, not remixing alive, which would have been phenomenal. But it
All those,
ultimately didn't happen.
all those claps.
Oh well, imagine a remixed version of Alive and Alive Two, right?
A better crowd.
Yeah, yeah. But going through the tapes, and there was a lot of bonus stuff that was laying around that wasn't music related, like some of the audio commercials and things like that. And it's a shame. We wound up,
Who was the voice on those commercials? Kiss, harder than hell. That little voice, that raspy voice. That
there's actually a little bit on that in my book, because it actually floored me when I first heard it. And
the demon from hell. What's it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. What's really cool about that is that the actor's name and everything was on the tape, and it was really cool to put two and two together. But I won't share that mystery yet because that's a cool part of the
Book.
process. But yeah, it's interesting to have been given such a great gift to be able to see what the label had. And but you got to remember, by that point, Casablanca wasn't the original owner anymore. They just became a label
A
under the
label,
Five Men
name,
umbrella.
logo. Yeah.
And a lot of people just didn't care about the Casablanca content. That just wasn't where their heads were at. So it was interesting to look at tapes that literally had dust on them. Where I literally could smear my hand and have dust on the on my palm. It was really cool to know what was available. And it's interesting. I wish some of the stuff that now is coming out, like this Destroyer box set, just really excites me. I mean, it's kind of how I
Envision.
wanted the remasters to be back in 1997. But
Yeah, I've heard you mention on different podcasts, and everyone was to talk about the elder and the elder this, and you the tracking, but were you able to go into the unmasked tracks and kind of figure out if there's a way to make it a little more rock? Was that an
no,
option?
Unmasked and Dynasty were delivered as you hear them. So they, once they were produced by Vinnie Ponce,
Big
the
ones,
tapes
yeah.
that were there were no multi tracks for those two records.
So he
Which
may
is a
have those.
shame. Yeah, because I always wanted to hear a hard rock charisma. That was one of the things I was looking forward to. But those two records, especially Dynasty and Unmasked, they were just the masters that were there was all that was there. Meanwhile, the
All
Elder had
combined,
boxes and boxes and boxes of multi tracks. It
which
was
I'm sure
really
that.
such an imbalance of what was available.
But I guess
Um,
that was also part of the band. How they in balance was the band during that period of recording. I guess they could, Ace was somewhere else working in his studio, and then or they were at Ace's studio. Then he would send out tape. I mean, there's a lot of there's even books about it. How that whole thing came together. But it's just, I guess, is what they always say. It's a great record, but it's not a great Kiss record. I guess the way it was produced, the way it was put together, the way it was between the band, the chemistry. I don't know. It's just a different record.
in hindsight, I think the record is a good record. I mean, I understand that if you went out and bought that record on opening, on release week, thinking you were going to hear a hard rock record, and being very disappointed, that I totally get. But when you think about that album and the entire Kiss catalog, I mean, when you're playing it amongst one of many Kiss records that you're listening to, it's not. It holds up. I think it holds up.
Well,
I
now
enjoy it.
you mentioned this. Now that if you go back to the story, same producer, Bob Ezrin, that wasn't well received because it was a polished record. It was not the same Kiss that was Harder Than Hell, Dressed to Kill, or the first record. It was just something else that was different, and that has a stamp of the producer, which is Bob Ezrin. And I guess it was the same situation with the Elder, which they let him take over, and he produced a record that he thought it would be. It could have been the Destroyer we wanted, but I guess it didn't become that.
I kind of equate that to, you got to remember Bob Ezrin's previous record to The Elder was Pink Floyd The Wall, right? So
You
That's a
know,
that's a
they had
masterpiece.
this whole
Think
array.
about that, right? So it wasn't like the guy had a significant successful record. So it was kind of like I could see why the level of disappointment was just so acute. But
Yeah,
when you think about Ezrin's producing career, I mean, he's done some great stuff,
awesome, awesome,
and like I said, Pink Floyd, The Wall. I listen to that album today regularly. It's a masterpiece.
correct.
So the follow up to The Wall, unless there's an album in the middle, I can't think of at the moment. But if his next produced record after The Wall was The Elder, then yeah, I could see why people would be disappointed.
Correct.
It's just. But no, but then Ezra made up for it with Revenge. I think Revenge is a kick-ass record. Definitely one of my favorites. Probably my second favorite non-makeup record.
Yeah, I think we all got back into Kiss in non makeup with that. Right? I mean, we all kind. I mean, myself, I bought Crazy Nights, Asylum, because you're a Kiss fan. You want to have those records and you play them and you
Right.
animalize. But that record kind of gave you back Gene, gave you back Paul, gave you back the whole essence. Even with new drummer, they gave you what Kiss was for us or for me as a fan, the sound that you wanted to hear on a Kiss record.
Well, let me put it this
Hard
way:
rock.
when Hot in the Shade came out, I had I saw the Rise to It video. I picked up the Rise to It single,
Ah,
but I didn't, which had the Power Rock version of it, which I thought was great. But I didn't run out and buy the album right away. I said, okay, it'll be there, and I'm ready for it. And, it was there, and I picked it up eventually. But when Unholy aired on MTV, and I was just
and
like,
you
oh
see all
my
that.
God, this is the Kiss. Yeah. I was living, I'll never forget this. I was living on 25th Street, West 25th Street, and I got up after seeing the video, walked from 25th Street to Tower Records on 4th Street,
Hmm.
and bought Revenge that day. And that's how excited I was that that the new Kiss, the
That's what
new,
they want right now.
yeah,
Let's go have the
yeah,
public go out and buy it.
yeah, yeah. And so it's the non-makeup years have their ups and downs. Lick It Up is still I think my number one non-makeup
That's when
record
I saw
still.
them in '83. Look it up.
No, that's
That
cool.
was my first concert for Kiss.
That's cool. That's very
Funny
cool.
enough, I was sitting next. I didn't know about. I mean, what his name is actually. I was sitting next to the guy that designed the cannon.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I forget his name, and his son was there, right? So we got to get. I guess it was a free ticket that he got for the show. They go and get me Kiss. So when they come back, I bought some Kiss picks from them for like $2 a piece
That's
because they
pretty
had
cool.
Kiss.
In the
They had
right place at the right time.
right? I mean, I would have said, hey, can I just tag along and meet Vinny and Eric but I just, it's just a different times. I was like 13 years old.
Listen, being backstage at the Ritz for the Revenge pre-show, um, and actually standing next to Gene's mother. I mean, that was just another area of, oh my God, is this really happening? So yeah, it's just a matter of being at the right place at the right time.
That's always good to be
Yeah,
there at the right time when you get
yeah,
to,
yeah.
be part of something, even Kiss or what have you. When you like music or all this stuff, and you get to be, fly in the wall, as they say, it's awesome. And then after you became involved with all the mastering, you also became involved with now a graphic presentation of the band, which is the Kiss years, correct?
Oh well, that was a collection of Barry Levine's, some of his best Kiss photos. It's really funny when that book came out at the right time in '97. It was an
Awesome book because you get all the perspective of different works he had done for the band.
Well, it's funny because up till that book's release, you really didn't have too many collections. I mean, there were magazines and stuff that would show outtake photos, but not too many. So that was a great way for the fans to learn about a particular photographer and to see all the different types of images that he shot. I mean, Barry shot thousands and thousands, so it was very hard
The
to.
classic ones. I
Yeah,
mean, you
yeah,
had history, but that was one of the first books of a graphic representation of what the band was prior to the reunion.
yeah, yeah,
That's
and
what I think about that book.
well, I always wanted. I mean, Barry Levine's imagery. I mean, when I got the Spirit of '76 poster for the first time, and I hung that on my wall. I was on my wall for years, never moved it, and it was just such a beautiful image, and learning that he shot the Empire State Building imagery and the cubicle stuff. It was just an amazing amount of work.
To me, that Spirit of '76 poster, it's so unlike his because you see Ace is laughing, Peter's wearing the whole bandana with the drum set.
Yeah.
Gene is like pissed off at Ace is whatever's doing. It's such a unlike Kiss, but then again, it's so iconic on its own.
Well, that was the year that came out. That was the United States 200th anniversary, and coincidentally, my birthday is July 4th, so I remember that like it was yesterday. It was my sixth
Okay.
birthday, so it was just so cool that they played to me that they played into that whole pro country spirit, and yeah, so you had that classic Revolutionary War. Um,
Iconography, or
motif. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that still remains one of my favorites of all time. But to work with Barry, to learn about why he shot the way he photographed them, and to learn to hear all about the different stories and stuff. The first edition of that book came with an interview CD with Barry, and
oh,
we just yeah, there you go. We to hear those behind the scenes stories for the first time. It was just the right time, and it opened up the world to fans. Like, oh my God, there's all these different outtakes of these things, all these different poses, and
I know
then
'cause
work.
we only saw, I guess, four of the linears with the cubes, and then we saw three or four shots of what have you, but we never saw the whole series of photographs of what was that session.
Yes, yeah, and I
Like,
mean, there's so much stuff out there today. I mean, today's audience, they're so lucky. Back in those days, to get outtakes of photographs, I mean, that was not an easy or inexpensive
we
process.
didn't
You know
even
what I'm
know
saying?
what they looked like.
Right, right. I mean, just occasionally you'd be at a Kiss convention or a rock and roll convention. Somebody would have slides for sale on their table, and you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I never saw these poses before."
Now he's
Uh,
laughing or
yeah,
something.
yeah, but it's funny because, like I said, today's Kiss audience, you just go on social media and you can download or look at
Whatever you
thousands of images, whatever you want. It's there, it's free, whatever. I mean, that wasn't the way it always was. So today's audience has it very lucky. They're very lucky.
Yeah, unique way to find out things. That's how I was happy to get this on my feed on my Facebook or Twitter on the new release of the 45. But I'm thinking, I'm sure that some people has already all these versions online or some kind of a YouTube. I'm guessing. I'm just going. But I'm great, happy that they finally package it, like you said, in some way you can keep a whole package of all these different versions. And it's like I was checking out, it was 4 CDs, 70 tracks, 48 unreleased. So I guess at least we're getting 48. I think we already heard 36. The one you remastered was part of the, I guess, the same package.
Well, the flaming youth from that Paris concert was definitely on the prototype tape for "You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best."
Mhm.
So I'm very happy it's finally going to come out officially along with the rest of the concert. And it's so funny because I never thought about even listening to the rest of that show because all those other songs, appeared on live.
I
But
saw that they also have acoustic version of Beth,
I
which is
wonder if that's the one from Kiss Meets the Phantom. That would
probably
be funny, right?
all right. Or they brought in a different guitarist to record a new version, because even
Yeah.
Peter recorded his own version on his solo album passed later on in the Cat record.
When I think about all the different formats that they announced today, I wish they would do a vinyl one, like a big box set, like those Metallica box sets that are out.
Those guys
Oh my
know
gosh,
their shit.
right? Oh my gosh. I mean, if they did Destroyer like that, like what they're doing for the CDs, if they did a vinyl version of that with all those reproductions and stuff, I mean that would just be amazing. I hope they do it. That would definitely be
Does it
something.
take research? Does it take? I mean, because even those boxes are not that. They don't do like millions of them. They just do a few thousands, I guess. I mean, I don't know, depending on your research on how the areas are going to be distributed, but I mean, you could probably do from day one. First Kiss record. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that they can do and package it. Kiss is more visual, so they can put 18 posters and Kiss stickers and laminates or what have you. But the music, I'm sure they have the material to at least put, even though we've heard those first demos, but put them in a nice way. They sound good, they're officially released, and you can actually get them all together in one package. They can
Yeah,
go from I mean, Destroyer, yes, I love, it's a great record, that's a stamp on the career, but there's three records prior to that that became that, and then
sure,
you have Alive. So why can we not have, I mean, we all want to have everything, especially music. But there's a will, there's a way.
that's true. That's true. Well, you got to remember, Kiss's 50th anniversary is only 2 years from now, right? So who knows what's going to be announced for 2 years? I mean, it'd be great if all the albums would be released this way or in special
Do
big
you still
box
feel the
sets.
same inspiration from Kiss as a kid now, or as makeup characters or makeup people in charge of them? Are you the same fan now as you were
Well, I'm a much
30 years
older.
ago?
I'm a much
30
older
years
fan
ago.
now. I got to tell you, I still listen. I listen to Kiss at least once a day, every day. And it's really funny. I was very blessed. I was very blessed to have heard all the Kiss albums up through Crazy Nights in the best possible setting,
Scenario.
which was Sterling Sound Production Studios in Upper Manhattan. To be able, Midtown Manhattan, to be able to hear those original tapes with
Uh-huh.
the best possible sound in the best possible scenario. I mean, that's something that is probably one of the best blessings of my life. To have heard Kiss Alive probably back to back at least 10 times to make sure we got it right, and to hear it, again with from the original master tapes to the DAT tapes, digital audio transfers that we made for the remasters. I heard those each of those albums at the loudest possible decibels
Decibels on the
that you could hear without your ears drums exploding, and to make sure that we could capture every iota of sound that was existent on those tapes, and make sure that they were on the CDs and cassettes. I mean, that's a Kiss fan's dream come true, and I was very lucky, very
Have you been
blessed to.
approached ever after 20 some years now, but to any Kiss project after your involvement, were you ever anytime invited to part, to be kind of a check out that the packaging was done, or is it just Tommy Taylor just making sure it's all done together?
I mean, I was lucky. I got to work on a lot of different licensed Kiss stuff. Most notably, probably the Cornerstone trading cards, Series 1 and 2. And
Hmm.
then Series 3, even though they didn't come out as trading cards, they were used in the History 2 book. And I did various odds and ends, lunch boxes and things like that for some of the licensees. Those were fun times. I got to work on some really cool products that I always get a kick when I see the stuff at conventions, because it's like, oh I love to show my kids. I love to tell my kids about some of the stuff I've worked on. They don't want to hear it anymore.
I wish we had those same thing, options to go in Texas. Texas doesn't have any Kiss conventions. I wish we could put together at some point, because it's more, New York
Mm.
and somewhere else that have those Kiss conventions. And now your book, uh, you've you mentioned that before on the podcast. Is that a project you're still working on? You have in time invested on it, and what's the timeline? Is it something? There's many books coming out, and there's have been some great ones, and then some delayed ones, and there's some all kinds of different, depending on the author. But your
Yeah.
book, I think, has a unique point because you work on the music. A lot of people just go and find different photographs and try to put them together into a catalog or a book, or a certain period, or the Madison Square Garden, or is the Spain version. But your book has an experience of working with the band, but you actually work on the catalog, which is like a dream come true for everyone to just to hear, 18 different versions of Rock and Roll, or or Detroit Rock City, or all the demos and all that stuff. So how is that coming along? And that's a good looking guy, in the 20s, in
I
a
was
suit
20. I was
makeup.
23 when that was done. That's so funny. Oh my gosh, yeah, more than half my life ago. You know, it's interesting. You know,
Takes time
throughout
and
this,
money, right?
what's that?
Takes time and money just to put together any
It
kind
take
of.
well, you know, it takes time. It takes, of course, money is a important ingredient. But the other thing is that you know you want to. I have a perfectionist aspect to my personality, so I really want to make it the best I possibly can. It's so funny because I have been working on it, working on a few other things, but the thing that is always funny as I'm going through boxes of papers or
Notes
stuff. Yes, exactly. I mean, I had 11 diaries, where I
prior
notated everything.
prior
Yeah. I mean, it's like, and then I mean, believe it or not, it's hard because you think, okay, the fans want every ounce of minutia they could possibly get their hands on, but at the same time, you want to tell a very cohesive story that makes sense, and so it's been interesting going through the boxes, finding things I totally forgot about, things that I thought I didn't keep, I did keep, thank gosh. And to be able to account for my time working in the vault and getting those remasters finished. It's a unique story that very few other people have.
yes.
And my goal is to get it out, but I want to get it out at the right time. Unfortunately, the COVID situation set everybody back. The entertainment business, as you know, has suffered tremendously. The book
We all
business
need
has
to make
suffered.
money somehow and gotta get our ways in, even if it's whatever we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it is important to get a story like that out there. And like I said, fortunately, I'm a pack rat, so I didn't I didn't throw out stuff that most people would have thrown out. And I want to share it with everybody. I think that's important.
How
So.
many photographs do you have from that you plan to have in your book? I mean, because I mean, like I said, there's books of just photographs of the timelines and what have you, or but yours is a story, so it has to have some photographs of what each chapter or each period of your working with the band has. Do you have a lot of material for that, or is it just the writing of it?
Well, I mean, it'll definitely be illustrated. There's certain photographers and certain artists that I will be, and have already been in touch with depending on who they are, that I want their contributions in the book. I think that's very important. But I want to do it the right way. There's books out there that are just taking images from photographers, not crediting them, and things like that. That really irritates me, and I don't get too much into it now, but. To
Takes a little
me,
magic.
there's such a thing called getting clearance. If you're going to use somebody's work, you got to get their clearance. You get their
I
permission.
don't want to dig into that too much, but it's just,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many books that come out. I mean, we can, I mean, you have your own perspective because you actually work at the band, but even a fan can do it and say,
Well,
I
the technology. See, this is what's really cool. Like, we're in an era where technology exists. You can print on demand and create this beautiful 800-page book, and it looks like it was manufactured beautifully. And
yeah,
you can do that today on your home computer. You can burn your own vinyl today on your own computer. I mean, the technology out there is
out
just
there, yeah.
it's out there and it's amazing. But there's also, sadly, there are people whose creative work is being pirated, and that's not right either. So you have to bring your own perspective as to what you want to do, what you feel is the best way to do it, and hopefully everybody that I want involved in this book will be
Contribute.
wanting to be part of it, and we'll do it the right way. That's the right way to do it.
Yeah, I
So.
mean, there's so many books. I mean, there's so many outlets. Like I said, I mean, and everybody, I mean, even people said the great thing about this technology is anybody can do a podcast. The bad part is anybody can do a podcast, or anybody
Yeah,
can do us and
sure.
stuff like that. I mean, we try to do our best. We don't do it every week. We just try to do the best ones we can.
Hey, listen, that's awesome. And like I said, I think it's great that so much content has been created, for our based on our favorite band. I just love the fact that fans can get on and talk about their collections and their
They share their
experiences and their
pictures and they share.
concerts.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
think about this. If this were the '70s or the '80s, we were lucky if we
Oh,
could
we
get a
would
pen.
be all day at work, at home, just watching podcasts and kiss
Oh well, back those when I first started, the only way to communicate with people internationally was either a
letters.
postcard, yeah, letters, internet, pen pals, or you could make a very expensive phone call, and your parents would be very upset with you when they got the phone bill. So
Who
I,
the fuck called to Italy for two
yeah,
hours?
exactly. Bobby, what's this $40 phone call for? I had to call a friend in England. What? Yeah,
What,
yeah,
10 minutes?
yeah, exactly. So you know,
Hey, Robert, just before we go, we've spent almost an hour and a half. I have
have
just
I bored you that much already? I'm sorry.
no, no, no. It's great. I mean, no, no,
Just kidding.
because I mean, it's just part of
Yeah.
with your life, and it's always. I like the part when we can talk to someone, and I would say, hey, and I'm having interviews that just last 20 minutes because they just have only 20 minutes, or they only have 20 minutes to talk about.
Yeah.
But there's two things I want to ask you about.
Uh-oh.
One is the one that for me it's a mystery, and I guess you because I see you have the Eric Carr ecology on the back of you.
Oh
Who
yeah. Yeah.
who owns Eric Carr?
Oh, well, that's not a question for me. That's
This is my question. This is because I see a
yeah.
lot of products coming out from the family, all with makeup, different. The first makeup, the second version, bobbleheads, but it's from the family. And if you geek like we are, when those Creatures of the Night figures came out, they had the old makeup, not the one we know and love Eric for. So I'm always, I mean, I even asked 10 years ago the three size guys who owns this makeup because I see it being used not as a part of the catalog, but as part of the family.
Mm.
So I guess maybe you have some way you can explain to me to that. I'm
I
just curious.
mean, I worked with the family when my company Studio Chikara back in the early 2000s. We had obtained permission to use Eric's likeness. We did some lithographs together. We did the first ever Eric card trading card set.
Mhm.
There was a comic book that was in production, but ultimately never came out. I still have pages from that. We worked on the initial release of Rockology when it was done through Spitfire. So I mean, we did. I was interviewed for that first Tale of the Fox DVD. So
Correct.
we did do some really cool Eric Carr stuff. So it was a blast working on it because it was really cool to see how many people were so dedicated to just Eric Carr.
Are you involved in the new documentary coming out at some point? Are
No, I
you
know. I had heard that it's coming out, and that's great. I wasn't asked to participate, but I look forward to seeing it when it comes out.
was that something that the family acquired as a license to use the makeup Eric Carr?
Again, that's a question for them. I don't know what they
It
did.
just seemed too obvious that they have the right to produce a lot of stuff that I think would be like Vinnie Vincent, just get away right away, get a letter of the cease to use it, but they use it. So I guess and you've seen those plaques they have the copyright makeup designs, and you've seen those, and I've seen one for Eric Carr. I don't know if that's an actual original plaque, and do
I
they keep
honestly,
the rights or something that they say, you know what, keep it, use it, do as much as you can with it?
well, there's nothing like getting clarification. So, what I would recommend is that you reach out to them, and maybe they'll give you the answers or do the show with you.
Could be. That was just one of my questions. I've always seen that image being used in their own products. So I was thinking, well, maybe they have the right. I mean, I'm just as a Kiss fan, as a geek and marketing and all that stuff. It's always into me how they, I've seen these products online and say, well, that's the makeup. That's it's. But anyways, and the last question or the last, your comments is what do you envision for the last run of Kiss? What do you want to see happen to the band? Have you been to many the last shows or the last tour?
I went to a few before the COVID crisis. I went to the Garden, Madison Square Garden show in New York. I went to two or three others, I believe. Look, I'm hoping for the All Star Jam at one point. I hope that they do a huge venue, and every living Kiss member gets on the stage for one or two songs a piece. That would be awesome. Um, of course, that's a Kiss fans' dream come true for that to happen.
Wet dream come true.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was definitely one that was praying, hoping beyond hope that they would have performed at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, but
Didn't
didn't
happen.
happen, and yeah, that was very disappointing. You would think that the
Even
most
without makeup would have been great, right?
right, the most visual band in the world should have definitely blown away everybody at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So to me, it's sad that that didn't happen. But I love the fact that this, all these stories I hear about the Kiss cruises and everything. I think that stuff's fantastic. But the final show, or at least the last few final shows, you got to have Ace up there. You got to have Peter up there, you know, and if Vinny and you know
Bruce
Bruce and Eric, well, Eric's part of the group. But if you could have everybody who's still around to get
represented.
up there. Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, I think it would be a great thing to do for the fans. I really do. And I enjoyed the Kissology A&E special. I thought that was done very well.
It was well done. I mean, for
Yeah,
a non-Kiss a Kiss fan, I think it was well put together because they have the stuff that we have never seen. Some of it, some we know, the stories we've heard of them,
sure.
all of them. But the perspective, and I get it. In in the four, each individuals how they want to represent themselves. But when it comes to it, Gene and Paul own whatever they the whole thing. But it's interesting that they are still so valid into the culture of music today, and
Well,
they have the space, and they have the outlet, and they have the interest, even though we call a niche of fans. But if it's an A&E, it's because you know there's something that people may not know about it, and they may get interested in it. And that's how it has become for the last almost 50 years, like you mentioned.
one of the things I just became enlightened with over the past couple of weeks. I have three kids. The youngest is 14. The oldest is almost 24. And it just amazes me how they're into the classic rock that I grew up with in real time. And when I asked them, what kind of T-shirts do you want? I'm not hearing anything new. Top
ACDC here.
40. Yeah, AC/DC, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like what? Really? They found the music and their imagery on their own without my influence, and I'm just it's just so cool. It's so cool. My daughter recently, I took her shopping and she wanted a Def Leppard T-shirt. I'm like, Def Leppard? You like Def Leppard?
What?
I'm like,
What?
I got Pyromania in '83 when it first came out. So it's interesting to have that link with your own children that you didn't influence them directly on it. So
That's
it's really
awesome. That's awesome.
that's really cool. So
Robert, anything you want to plug in? You want to mention about your doing that you're having in the future? You want to, we have your both websites that we have on.
well,
We
thank you.
can
Yeah, we're going to be making an announcement soon. I don't want to give an exact date because these projects are happening organically. So I don't want to give a date that I feel forced to compel. To deliver on. I want the projects I'm working on now. When they're ready, we're going to announce them. They'll be done already. So there won't be any fear of is this book going to come out? What's going to
one
happen?
year, two
No.
years, 5 years.
Yeah, it's not the right way to do it. You got to have a book ready to be at the printer or at the printer when you announce it. I think that's very important. And we got to rebuild the faith when it comes to crowdfunding and stuff. It's
Correct.
important that there's been a lot of faith lost, and it's unfortunate. It really is because crowdfunding is such a wonderful platform, but you have to be responsible if you're going to use it. You really do. So
Yeah.
So yeah, there'll be some stuff being announced soon, and you'll definitely be you're on the list to get the heads
Please
ups.
do share
Yeah,
it, and
absolutely,
we can,
absolutely.
present it even for shorter time, or whatever time you have for us to talk about it. We're more than glad to share with everybody else.
Very cool. Well, thank you.
Robert, appreciate it so much. Once again, this is Robert. Robert V. Conti or just Robert Conti? Which one do you prefer more?
I go by Robert V. Conte more than anything else, only because there's a Robert Conte who's a soccer player, and and believe it or not, there's a Robert Conte who's a film screenwriter too. And it's funny over the years, each of us get confused sometimes. People, I'll never forget. One other Robert Conte got mail that was meant for me, and it's just like, okay, let me differentiate this a little bit. So
Funny story with my name is Marcelo Rodriguez, right?
yeah,
When George Michael got caught with that police
yeah,
officer, what was
yeah.
the name? What was the name? Marcelo Rodriguez. I'm stuck for life. It wasn't
I
me.
I thought you were gonna finally admit it, but okay, all right. You didn't admit it tonight. It's
It
okay.
wasn't me. It wasn't
One
me.
day. No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Robert, thank you so much.
All right,
It's been a
all right.
pleasure finally to get in touch with you and share your story. It's
Thank you,
appreciated in many
thank you
ways.
for the invite, and we'll definitely keep you posted on stuff.
You got it.
All right, my
Robert
man.
B. Conti,
Yeah.
Concert to Presents interview. Check it out. Like us on Facebook, YouTube, and anywhere you can, and check out Robert's uh, projects in the future. Robert, thanks so
All
much,
right.
brother.
Good night, sir. Take
You
care.
too. Have a good
Thank you.
Friday. Bye
You
bye.
too. Bye bye.